James Parker, a police officer in his early 50s, woke up to the sound of his alarm clock. As usual, he immediately got out of bed and headed to the bathroom. Years of police work had trained him to avoid lingering in bed. After a quick shower, he put on his uniform and left his small apartment in Chicago, a city he had come to view with indifference. He grabbed a coffee and a donut from a 24-hour diner, his only sustenance before starting another monotonous day. James felt a deep sense of detachment from his surroundings. The city, once a place of excitement and opportunities, now seemed like a gray mass of buildings and noise. His job, which once filled him with purpose, had become a routine of paperwork and fleeting encounters with criminals. The only thing that lingered in his mind was Sophie, the woman he had loved and lost. The regret gnawed at him daily, but he had resigned himself to a life devoid of color and excitement. On this particular morning, as he sipped his coffee and nibbled on his donut, James noticed a young man acting suspiciously. The boy, around 22 years old, had a nervous energy about him as he glanced around the diner. James's instincts kicked in. He watched as the young man picked up a sandwich and started towards the door without paying. "Hey kid, stop right there," James called out, rising from his seat. The young man froze, his eyes wide with fear. James quickly reached him and grabbed his arm. "Come with me," he said, leading the boy out of the diner and towards his patrol car. At the police station, James began the routine questioning. "What's your name, son?" he asked sternly. "Alex," the boy replied, his voice barely above a whisper. James searched Alex's pockets and found a small black wallet. Opening it, he discovered a few coins, a family photo, and a folded piece of paper. As he unfolded the paper, his heart skipped a beat. It was a note he had written many years ago, back when he was young and in love with Sophie. The realization hit him like a truck. Alex was his son, a son he never knew he had. "Where did you get this?" James demanded, his voice shaking. Alex looked confused and scared. "It's my mom's. She kept it all these years. She told me it was from someone important." James's mind raced. Sophie had left him while she was pregnant, never telling him about their child. Overwhelmed by the discovery, he asked Alex to take him to see Sophie. "Is your mom around?" James asked, trying to keep his composure. "She's in the hospital," Alex admitted reluctantly. "She's very sick." James felt a mixture of emotions: anger, regret, sadness, but most of all, a desperate need to see Sophie. He instructed Alex to lead the way, and they drove to the hospital in tense silence. Each passing moment felt like an eternity as James grappled with the reality of the situation. When they arrived at the hospital, James's heart pounded. He followed Alex through the sterile halls until they reached a small room. Inside, lying on a hospital bed, was Sophie. She looked frail, her face pale and thin. But despite her condition, there was a spark of recognition and emotion in her eyes when she saw James. "Sophie," he whispered, stepping closer to the bed. "It's been so long." Tears welled up in Sophie's eyes. "James," she said weakly, "I never thought I'd see you again." James knelt beside her, his heart breaking at the sight. "Why didn't you tell me about Alex?" he asked, his voice choked with emotion. "I thought you had moved on," Sophie replied, her voice trembling. "I saw you with another woman and assumed you had forgotten about me." James shook his head. "There was never anyone else. I've thought about you every day." As they talked, the years of misunderstanding and regret began to melt away. James promised to stay by Sophie's side and make up for lost time. He also assured Alex that things would be different from now on. In that hospital room, amidst tears and heartfelt confessions, a journey of reconciliation began. James felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in years, believing that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to heal the wounds of the past. James's days quickly became a routine of visiting Sophie at the hospital. Each visit was filled with a mix of emotions: relief that she was still with him, sorrow at seeing her so weak, and hope that she might recover. The doctors had made it clear that her will to live was crucial for her recovery. James was determined to be the reason she fought to get better. One afternoon, as James sat by Sophie's bedside, he noticed a change in her. Her cheeks had a hint of color, and she smiled more often. They talked about their past, sharing memories of the times they had spent together before everything fell apart. They also discussed Alex, who was now caught between the parents he had never seen together. "Sophie, I want to make things right," James said one day, taking her hand in his. "I know I can't change the past, but I can be here for you now. And for Alex." Sophie's eyes softened. "I believe you, James. It means a lot to me that you're here." Alex, who had been standing quietly by the door, stepped into the room. "I've never seen you two together," he admitted. "It's strange, but also kind of nice." James turned to his son. "Alex, I know this is a lot to take in, but I want to be a part of your life, too. I've missed so much already." Alex nodded slowly. "I get it. It's just a lot to process." James arranged for Alex to work with a friend of his, ensuring the young man would have a stable job and stay out of trouble. Alex was hesitant at first but agreed, recognizing that his father was trying to help. One evening, James decided to take Sophie out for a drive. The hospital had agreed that a change of scenery might do her good. They drove to a beautiful field filled with yellow flowers, a place that reminded them both of happier times. The setting sun cast a warm glow over the field, creating a serene and peaceful atmosphere. "This place is beautiful," Sophie said, leaning back against the car seat. "It reminds me of when we first met. Do you remember that summer?" James smiled. "I do. It was the best time of my life." They sat on a blanket James had brought, eating sandwiches and drinking coffee from a thermos. They talked about everything and nothing, just enjoying each other's company. For the first time in years, Sophie felt a sense of peace and happiness. The past's burdens seemed lighter in that moment. As they were packing up to leave, Sophie took James's hand. "Thank you for this, James. It means more than you know." James squeezed her hand gently. "I'll do anything to see you smile, Sophie." Back at the hospital, Sophie's condition continued to improve. The nurses and doctors were amazed at her progress. "She's glowing with joy," they said to each other. "That's what love does." One day, while James was at work, Alex visited Sophie alone. He sat by her bedside, looking thoughtful. "Mom, can you tell me more about you and Dad? I want to understand everything." Sophie nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "Your father and I loved each other very much, but we had our misunderstandings. I thought he had moved on, so I left. It was a mistake I regret every day." Alex listened intently, realizing the depth of the pain and regret his parents had carried for so many years. "I want us to be a family," he said quietly. "I don't know what that looks like, but I want to try." Sophie smiled through her tears. "I want that too, Alex. More than anything." James continued to visit every day, bringing little gifts and spending as much time as possible with Sophie and Alex. Their conversations became deeper, their bond stronger. James and Sophie found themselves falling back into the rhythm of their old love, the connection that had never truly faded. One evening, James brought a surprise. "I have something to show you," he said, leading Sophie out of the hospital room. They walked slowly down the corridor, Alex by their side, until they reached the hospital's small chapel. Inside, a few of their closest friends and family members were waiting. "What's all this?" Sophie asked, looking around in surprise. James took her hands in his. "I know it's sudden, but I want to renew our vows. I want to start fresh with you and Alex as a family." Tears filled Sophie's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, James. I'd love that." In the quiet, intimate ceremony, James and Sophie reaffirmed their love and commitment to each other. It was a moment of healing and hope, a promise of better days to come. James and Sophie's renewed vows marked a turning point in their lives. The ceremony had been small and intimate, but it held immense significance for the three of them. As they stood together in the hospital chapel, surrounded by a few close friends and family, the weight of the past seemed to lift. In the days that followed, Sophie's health showed remarkable improvement. Her doctors were astounded by the progress, attributing much of it to her rekindled spirit and the support of her family. James and Alex were constant fixtures by her side, their presence a source of comfort and strength. James had arranged for Alex to work with his old friend, Mike, who owned a local auto repair shop. Alex quickly took to the work, finding solace in the routine and the sense of purpose it provided. It was a far cry from the aimless days he had spent before reconnecting with his father. One afternoon, while James was at work, Alex decided to visit his mother at the hospital. He found Sophie sitting by the window, looking out at the bustling city below. Her eyes lit up when she saw him. "Hey, Mom," Alex greeted, pulling up a chair beside her. "How are you feeling today?" "I'm feeling much better," Sophie replied with a smile. "Every day feels a little brighter with you and James around." Alex nodded, looking thoughtful. "I've been thinking a lot about everything you told me, about you and Dad and how things fell apart. I want to understand more." Sophie reached out and took his hand. "What do you want to know, sweetheart?" Alex hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Why did you leave without telling Dad about me? Didn't you think he deserved to know?" Sophie sighed, her expression turning somber. "I made a mistake, Alex. I was hurt and confused. When I saw your father with another woman, I assumed he had moved on. I didn't want to burden him with my problems. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now how wrong I was." Alex squeezed her hand gently. "I get it, Mom. I just wish things had been different." "So do I, Alex," Sophie said softly. "But we can't change the past. All we can do is move forward and try to make the best of what we have now." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock on the door. James entered, carrying a bouquet of flowers. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said, smiling. "Not at all," Sophie replied, her face lighting up. "Come in." James placed the flowers on the bedside table and sat down beside Sophie. "How are you feeling today?" "I'm doing well," Sophie said, glancing at Alex. "We were just talking about the past." James nodded, understanding. "It's important to talk about these things. We've all been carrying a lot of pain for a long time." As the days turned into weeks, the three of them fell into a comfortable routine. James would visit Sophie every morning before work, and Alex would spend his afternoons with her after finishing up at the auto shop. Their time together was filled with conversations, laughter, and the slow healing of old wounds. One evening, as they were sitting in Sophie's room, James brought up an idea. "I've been thinking," he began. "Maybe we should take a trip once Sophie is well enough, just the three of us. Somewhere peaceful where we can relax and spend time together." Sophie's eyes sparkled with excitement. "That sounds wonderful, James. Where were you thinking?" "I was thinking about a cabin by the lake," James replied. "I know a place a few hours from here. It's quiet and beautiful. A perfect spot for us to reconnect and make new memories." Alex grinned. "I'm in. It sounds like just what we need." The plan for the trip gave them all something to look forward to. It became a topic of conversation during their visits, a beacon of hope for the future. As Sophie's health continued to improve, the prospect of the trip seemed more and more attainable. However, the journey wasn't without its challenges. There were setbacks, days when Sophie's condition would waver, and the fear of losing her would resurface. But with each hurdle, James and Alex remained steadfast, their love and support unwavering. One particularly difficult night, Sophie experienced a severe bout of pain. James and Alex rushed to her side, their hearts heavy with worry. The doctors managed to stabilize her, but the scare left them all shaken. "Don't leave us, Mom," Alex whispered, holding her hand tightly. "We still have so much to do. We need you." Sophie smiled weakly. "I'm not going anywhere, Alex. Promise. We're going to take that trip, and we're going to make it the best time of our lives." The incident served as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing every moment. James and Alex doubled their efforts to ensure Sophie's comfort and happiness, determined to make the most of the time they had together. As the days passed, Sophie's strength slowly returned. The anticipation of their trip by the lake became a symbol of their journey towards healing and reconciliation, a promise of better days ahead. The long-anticipated day of their trip finally arrived. James, Sophie, and Alex were packed and ready, filled with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Sophie, though still fragile, had made enough progress to take the journey. The doctors had given their cautious approval, and James had taken every precaution to ensure her comfort. As they drove out of the city, the atmosphere in the car was light and filled with chatter. Alex was animated, pointing out sights along the way, while James occasionally glanced at Sophie, his heart swelling with gratitude for this second chance. The cabin by the lake was everything James had promised. Serene, beautiful, and peaceful. It was nestled among tall trees, with a clear view of the shimmering water. The moment they arrived, Sophie's face lit up with joy. "This place is perfect," she said, breathing in the fresh air. "Thank you, James. It's exactly what we needed," Alex added, helping to carry their bags inside. They spent the first day settling in, exploring the surroundings, and enjoying the tranquility. James had arranged for all their meals, ensuring they could focus solely on spending time together without any worries. In the evenings, they sat by the fireplace, sharing stories and laughter. One night, as they sat by the fire, Sophie turned to James and Alex with a serious expression. "I want to tell you both something," she began, her voice soft but steady. James and Alex exchanged glances, giving her their full attention. "I've had a lot of time to think about the past and everything we've been through," Sophie continued, "and I realize now that holding on to regret and pain only keeps us from truly living. I don't want to waste any more time on what could have been. I want to focus on the present and the future, with both of you." James reached out and took her hand. "We're here with you, Sophie, every step of the way." Alex nodded. "We're a family, and we're not letting anything come between us again." The following days were filled with activities that strengthened their bond even further. They went for walks along the lake, fished from the dock, and even took a small rowboat out onto the water. Each moment was precious, a testament to their renewed commitment to each other. One afternoon, as they sat on the porch, Alex brought out an old photo album he had found in the cabin. "Look at these," he said, flipping through the pages. "This family seems so happy." Sophie leaned over to look, her eyes softening. "They remind me of us," she said, "before everything got complicated." James nodded. "We can be like that again. We are like that again." Alex smiled. "You know, I've always wondered what it would have been like to have you both in my life growing up. But now, I'm just grateful for what we have now." Sophie put her arm around him. "And we're grateful for you, Alex. You've brought us back together." As their time at the cabin drew to a close, they found themselves reluctant to leave. The trip had been a healing experience, one that had brought them closer than ever. On their last evening, they decided to have a small celebration by the lake. James lit a bonfire, and they sat around it, roasting marshmallows and sharing their hopes for the future. Sophie, looking radiant in the firelight, made a toast. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her cup, "and to love, which has brought us back together." James and Alex raised their cups in unison. "To love," they echoed. The drive back to Chicago was filled with a sense of contentment. They had faced their past, reconciled their differences, and emerged stronger as a family. Sophie's health continued to improve, her spirit buoyed by the love and support of James and Alex. Once back in the city, they settled into a new routine. James and Sophie spent their mornings together, taking walks in the park or sitting in cozy cafes, while Alex worked at the auto shop. Evenings were reserved for family time, where they would gather to talk about their day, cook dinner together, or watch a movie. One evening, as they sat together in their living room, Sophie turned to James with a smile. "I've never been happier," she said softly. "Thank you for not giving up on us." James kissed her gently. "Thank you for giving me another chance." Alex, sitting across from them, watched his parents with a sense of peace. For the first time in his life, he felt the true meaning of family. They had found their way back to each other, and in doing so, had created a new beginning filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities. The journey of lost love, regret, and reconciliation had come full circle, proving that it's never too late to heal old wounds and embrace a brighter future together.